be activated starting tomorrow evening. So we are prepping and looking forward to hopefully a better outcome than what we saw this morning on the local weather channels. That's all we have for right now. Thank you.
Chief Reynolds.
We continue to work collaboratively with all of our partners in the Low Region. I've been on the phone this morning with Sheriff Cannon, with Chief Ritchie, with Chief Burgess, and with public safety. That includes fire rescue, police, emergency management. That includes federal, state, and local. The mayor has been in constant contact with the governor. We're going to continue to follow the governor's lead in terms of evacuation and the reversal of the interstate. We've been a big part of that. We actually have had a large number of officers assigned to that detail to work closely with the state. It's likely that we're going to get significant flooding and high winds, so it is extremely important, and I'll just emphasize what's already been said, that we all help with evacuations. We have time now to do that. Everybody's got good information. Everyone in public safety will have a lot easier job if everybody evacuates now. Life safety is the most important thing over property protection. We're already starting to talk about after landfall and what those operations look like in terms of rescue. The more people that are not in the city when that occurs, the safer not only they'll be, but the safer we will be, and the better more capable we'll be able to do those rescues. So we've been working with our vulnerable communities and with everybody in the Low Country region to make sure that we keep our communities safe. As the mayor mentioned earlier, Chief Ritchie I would have to concur, as I think every chief in the Low Country would, that we are out in mass, if you will. We have all of our officers in our entire department activated. They will continue to be activated until we're through this entire event. They will be present in the communities, protecting people's homes after they evacuate, keeping our communities safe, and we have a lot of work to do, and we, I think, are in a very good position as we point forward, but it's important that people evacuate and heed the warning of the governor, of the mayors, that we can get our cities evacuated quickly and now. Thank you.
So, the big picture. We've got a dangerous storm, unpredictable. We've got a strong community, Charleston strong. We are a resilient community. We're going to recover from whatever comes. We've learned to roll with the punches. We've seen 3 years in a row now with a hurricane coming our way. We know how to handle this. But the safest thing to protect human life is to evacuate now. Make plans to get out of town for the weekend, and we'll do whatever we can to encourage and to help folks make that decision. And we're going to stand ready. We're going to mind the store while you're gone, and we're going to recover well. This is a great community, and I'm going to open up for any questions that y'all may have. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, probably for Assistant Chief Roberts, if you could speak to how prepared the fire department is going to be for possible water rescues.
Yes, we're activating all of our USAR members, which are trained in water responses. We also have requested additional resources throughout the state of South Carolina to be on a standby here in Charleston. The biggest thing we want to enforce to the citizens of Charleston: if you live in a low-lying area that has flooded in the past 3 years, now is the time to evacuate. Chances are, when the storm strikes and the winds get up, and if you're in need of rescue, chances are there will be no emergency services to come to rescue you. So now is the time to evacuate, because there again, for the last 3 years we've had major storms, and this may be worse than what we've seen before. So now is the time to evacuate, because there again, when we have this storm, the emergency services may not be there to respond.
Have you guys brought in any boats yet to assist?
We have boats on standby. We will have resources on hand when the storm, for the aftermath of the storm, and those resources should be on hand by tomorrow afternoon.
At what point will the department decide, hey, it's too dangerous for even us to go out?
There again, we monitor the weather, we monitor the wind, and that is usually based off of the winds when we curtail our responses.
And regarding drainage, flooding is our primary concern about the upcoming weekend. We think there could be a real inundation of rain, not just in Charleston, but in the whole state of South Carolina. Locally, we've taken as best measures as we can. We've put portable pumps in place in certain locations. We drained the levels of Colonial Lake and Lake Dotterer, West Ashley. We've had all our vacuum trucks and personnel out all week cleaning every ditch and drainage feature that we possibly could to try to get the water to flow as best as it can, no matter how much comes.
For those saying that Matthew didn't amount to what it should have been and Irma didn't amount to what it should have been for us in South Carolina, what would you say to them for those who are not evacuating because, again, they don't think it's going to amount to what it could be?
Right. Batten down your hatches and be safe. But if you're in a flooding area like Chief Roberts just said, you really should get out. You really should get out.
Do you have any idea on shelter numbers? I know they're a last resort, so it could be a little too early, but do you know any about the shelter numbers? How many people have evacuated?
Last night I heard there were only a little over 200 folks residing in the shelter that was available. There's much more capacity. I did hear that you need to bring supplies and even a sleeping bag and a cot if you happen to have those. So apparently they don't. It's not the Hotel Ritz. You got to bring some supplies with you. So keep that in mind if you're planning on sheltering. Well, thank you all for being with us and helping us get this message out. Anything else, Mayor? Anyone?
Nope.
Thank you very much. God bless.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Mayor, good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
So on the peninsula, we're not charging anything. I suspect what we probably would have to say.
So if you leave
If
there,
we're, let me just say, we're not leaving a single person on this.
So I will tell you, I've looked at more models. I've looked at the Weather Channel more in the last 48 hours than I have. Watched it for 2 hours last night, from 2300 to 0100. I don't know why I got watching it. So we looked at all that stuff, and we were connected with the National Weather Service. We get specific briefings from them, and I get more briefings on this stuff. So it's a lot of different models that you're looking at. So we are still potentially impacted by this, and it is potentially going to be a problem for us all the way up here, all the way up into the Hampton Roads area, all the way up to York River and the James River as well. So we can see this from all the way up. So it's hard to give you a specific, but we are still potentially, even if with it taking the southerly turn, we can still have impact with it. So that's probably the best answer I can give you. So
how concerned are you at this point with flooding and surge, and can you equate this to any recent storms from Isabel on up that you've got Willoughby Spit, you've got all the Zone A. What are you expecting, and what are you planning for that?
So it's hard to tell. So you got Isabel, you got Irene. I think are probably the two closest ones that we had. I was here for Irene. I was in Captain Kelly's job when we had Irene come through. Probably the closest one that we have to that. So I'd say that's probably the closest, I think, to that we're probably going to deal with in terms of surge, of storm surge. But that's probably the best guess that we have. And once again, nobody can predict that specifically. So that's probably our best guess at this point in time. So probably a little bit of a surge based on that. So
are you coordinating sort of with local law enforcement and fire rescue to, after things pass, yes, should there be extensive flooding? So
the captain of the port. So I oversee the district. So you've got the local captain of the port, Captain Hampton Roads. Is coordinating the local piece of that, and I oversee the bigger piece of that with the entire district from New Jersey, North Carolina, all the way down to South Carolina, North Carolina. So the captain of the port is managing that piece of it as well. So we're in link with him. So I'm working the North Carolina piece and the Hampton Roads piece as well. So but the local sector captain of the port is managing that as well. So
can you describe, I guess, compared to a normal day, the number of ships that are in port now, and how many roughly have left?
Well, so the Navy sortied. So the whole Navy sortied on it was on Monday. They sortied out, and I think pretty much the port is pretty much empty. I know that they're doing a little bit here. I don't know the specific numbers, and once again, that would be Captain Carroll, the captain of the port, would have those specific numbers. So I don't have that for you, but I know that it's very limited right now, and most of the ships have gone out to sea and are not in port right now. So I don't have the specific numbers on that. I don't have that level of detail for you.
Okay,
all right, check.
Is providing help post catastrophe one of the things that you are most proud of?
Well, I think so. Look, I think so. Two things I'd like to say on that. Number one, yeah, I think we are always ready. Responding after the storm is something that we can do. We have the ability to fly to respond in very challenging conditions. So that's something the Coast Guard can do, and we're ready to do that. It's a balance, managing warranted risk when we put our pilots and put our crews in that thing, and we want to make sure that we can respond and bring our folks home. The other thing I will tell you is that people do get in trouble. If people do get in trouble, if they don't heed the warnings, they get into trouble. 911 is your best friend. So we want to make sure that people know that. It's 911 is if you get into trouble, you're not listening and don't heed it, and you find yourself in a bad way, call 911. Social media is not the place to go and expect to get response. Now, if you do go to 911 and you find yourself in a bad place, I can't guarantee you, based on what I've told you earlier, that we're going to be able to respond, because we may not have the resources ready to respond. But 911 is your best option. But I am proud of the Coast Guard and what we can do, because we do have highly trained crews, and I'm very proud of that response capability. But based on what we're doing to try to make sure that we're ready to respond after the storm, we might be a little bit of a diminished ability to respond. But 911 is that really want to take you that. Make sure that people understand that.
Admiral, it's time for one more question before we move on. Is there any final questions? Awesome. Thanks, Admiral.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, guys.
I have a couple of updates. There are 6 heavy weather surf stations in North Carolina. They have moved assets north and south of the storm's projected path so that they can get back and respond without receiving damage prior. Port condition, Zulu in a modified state is the current port condition for Hampton Roads. What that means is that in normal Zulu condition, there are no port operations. Because the path of the storm has moved south, the captain of the port, Captain Carroll, is permitting some port operations on a case-by-case basis. That facilitates the flow of traffic and commerce so that we're not impacting commerce too greatly, but still concerned about safety. So those are the two things. And then we do, at the state and local level for the Coast Guard, we do have our assets prepared to support state and local search and rescue response after the storm. For instance, we do have flood punt teams pre-positioned in North Carolina in areas we know are common to flooding so that they can help afterwards with the state. But that will all go through the state, meaning don't call the Coast Guard. If you're on land and you need help, still call 911. And if you have any other follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer after. Thank you for coming out.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
When you guys are ready.
All right.
So good afternoon, I'm Stephen Ray. I'm the Emergency Services Director for Carteret County. This is Tommy Burns, our County Manager, and this is Mark Mansfield, our Chairman of our County Commissioners. We coming today to let you guys know we are under, Carteret County is still under a mandatory evacuation. We are encouraging our citizens to heed the word of the evacuation. We have actually taken several trips to Knightdale with citizens to shelters in Knightdale, and we need them to understand that sheltering in Carteret County, the buildings of Carteret County cannot withstand a high Category 3 or Category 4 hurricane, and we're really encouraging them to continue to evacuate. At this time, we would like to announce that we will be opening Newport Middle School at 5 p.m. today for sheltering purposes. And if people need transportation for that, they still need to contact us at 252-222-5841. But again, we would highly encourage anybody that can evacuate to continue to evacuate and go ahead and work through their plan.
Are you seeing people taking your advice?
We do see a lot of people that are evacuating. As I said, we had several citizens that took our advice and contacted us for transportation, and we have taken them to the Knightdale sheltering.
You sent out a notice that at 9:30 this morning people should have called if they needed transportation up to Wake County. If people are still here, are they able to still get assistance if they need it to those shelters, transportation-wise?
We will always work with our citizens to get them the assistance that they need during the storm time. Yes.
What is your biggest worry with this storm?
The biggest worry with this storm is the duration of the storm and the impacts that the Weather Service has given us about high winds and storm surge.
And flooding will be a big issue. What is your plan going forward? Are you getting rescue boats ready and so forth?
We have put in our request to our state for high clearance vehicles. We've also put in for swift water teams, and we're waiting for those teams to get to us, yes.
Yesterday we spoke to you at 3:30. What's changed overnight since we last spoke to you as far as your preparation? What else has been moved in place?
So what has been moved in place, we've activated our Emergency Operations Center to a 24-hour operations at this point in time, and they will remain activated until further notice.
A lot of people are like breathing a sigh of relief because the storm is heading southward. What would be your advice to that?
My advice is that this is still going to be a historic storm and that they need to heed the warnings of the evacuation.
So I'll add on right there. So the track of the storm at this point has changed, but if that high pressure moves any at all, that storm could assume the track that it was on before. So at this point in time, you need to stay out of harm's way, and the safety of everybody is most concerned. But if you remember Fran and Bertha, they both went in down around Wilmington and Topsail, and we had severe damages here to property damage. Luckily no loss of life, but flooding and all kinds of safety issues. So everybody needs to be vigilant.
To your point just then, we hear time and time again of people who said, I rode out a storm 20 years ago. Your message to people that say, we've done this before, we're going to stay.
Well, my message would be watch the Weather Channel when it's not a hurricane, so you can see about the people at Hurricane Sandy up north. People said they wish they had left and evacuated, and tons of other storms, whether it be Hugo, Isabel. I mean, there are just as many stories that I've stayed than I shouldn't have stayed. So I would say be careful.
Stephen, I heard the plan is to close entry into Carteret County around noon. Is that still the plan?
We have not made any plans of that, and that's not coming from our office.
Okay, gotcha.
The beach bridges will close at 7 a.m. on both ends of both banks tomorrow morning, and there will be a curfew in effect on both banks.
Gotcha.
When does that curfew go into effect?
7 a.m. tomorrow morning.
And we would like to further stress that during the storm event, our response capability is going to be severely limited, if at all. And so that folks just need to understand that should they decide to shelter here, our emergency responders will not be able to respond until it's safe for them to do so. And we want to reiterate that their safety is just as important as everyone else's, and we've got to protect their lives and so forth. And so
we'll make those decisions based on the storm itself and when we feel like it's safe to release them to respond to those situations. Any questions?
Thank you guys very much. That that's a new one there.
Hurricane Florence.
Good morning, everybody. This is the 11 o'clock from the National Hurricane Center. And you can see, looking at this graphic, that it's considerably different from what yesterday was. Yesterday, that error cone was just north, depending on which graphic you looked at, either lying right over Beaufort County or just to the north and west of us. We're now well within it. And what the National Hurricane Center, who lays out this graphic, what they're trying to avoid is a windshield wiper effect, and those are their words. With the track, every update they do, you know, it's left, it's right, it's left, it's right. So they're trying to go down the middle of these slight changes. And this is not an exact science. It never has been. It's very much better than it used to be, but it's still not an exact science. So they're trying to stay on a very cautious track, and they are encouraging everyone. And we have said this from the beginning of this event. This is going to be a statewide South Carolina event. And this is illustrating this. And we always tell you, as the storm gets closer, we will know more. Well, look at us now. It is closer, and we know a whole lot more. We are looking at a potential right now of this storm making landfall somewhere along the South Carolina, North Carolina coast, somewhere Myrtle Beach, Little River, Wilmington, Southport, that area. And they're not sure if it's going to stall right there for up to 24 hours or move slightly inland and stall and then begin to slide south and westward, bringing a tremendous amount of rainfall. On the north side of this storm, they're talking 30 inches of rainfall. That is a huge amount. If you go back in your memory to October of 2015 and the floods that the Piedmont and the upper coastal plain of South Carolina saw, nobody got to 30 inches. There were a couple places that recorded in excess of 20. And remember the catastrophic damage that brought to us. Well, now they're forecasting a possible 30-inch rainfall in some locations connected with the storm. And not here in Beaufort County. But whereas 2 days ago we were looking at, you know, maybe some tropical infused rains, now we're looking at a considerable rainfall, several inches. We're looking at some tropical storm force winds, possibly even a little stronger than that, into the hurricane type range, especially if it continues to turn slightly southward. So again, go back in your memory banks and look at Matthew. Matthew was a wind lesson for us. Matthew in Beaufort County never reached hurricane strength, with the exception of one recorded gust at the Hilton Head Airport. The Marine Corps Air Station never recorded a hurricane strength gust, but remember the amount of tree damage we had, the widespread power outages. We were pretty much 100% customers without power at the very end of the storm, and then it took 7 days to restore 100% power to the citizens of Beaufort County. Then think about Irma last year, not a whole lot of wind, but we had somewhere in the 3 to 4 feet of storm surge range. Well, they've been calling for 2 to 4 feet at Edisto Island, which is in the warning area. We're still not in the warning area, but we expect that to change at one of the next updates. It did not change at 11 from the Hurricane Center. It may change at 2. It will likely change at 5, if not probably at 11 tonight. Again, we're waiting on this, and they're making all their calculations and all this. But Edisto is, and if you drive out to Hunting Island, Edisto is right across the sound. You can see it. National Hurricane Center uses well-defined boundaries for their segments, and the Edisto River is one of their, the south end of Edisto Island is one of their established boundaries. So the storm's not going to recognize that boundary. If they're going to get 2 to 4 feet of storm surge at Edisto, our north-facing exposures can expect the same thing. Dalto Island, Harbor Island, Hunting, Fripp, the northern face of the Beaufort, of the Bluffton landscape along Colleton River and these areas. If they're north facing and the wind is blowing out of the northeast, again a scenario such as Irma, they're going to be seeing that 2 to 4 feet if that's what the forecast holds. So folks that are in that area, folks that know what they already experienced in Matthew, know what they experienced in Irma, even though we are currently not under a watch or a warning, even though we are currently not under an evacuation order from the governor, these folks that live in these areas, they know what they experienced. You know what you experienced. If you saw it and you don't want to be part of it again, as the sheriff said, now is the time to move. But we're encouraging you to move southward, because if this storm does as being forecast with this left-hand turn and sliding along the coast, the central part of the state, where we would normally evacuate to, is going to become inundated. And again, we go back to October 2015, the roads in Hampton County, in Barnwell County, in Aiken County, a tremendous amount of flooding, road closures, bridge washed out, all this sort of thing. We're anticipating a repeat of that type of event. So if you're not comfortable with it, we're encouraging you to turn south. Georgia and Florida are wide open, sunshiny, good shape down there for the time being ahead of us. So it's important that we prepare. The sheriff mentioned again, we've got everything. We are in a full readiness posture. All of our law enforcement, our South Carolina DOT partners, our public works partners at the county and municipalities, we're all absolutely primed and ready to go. That's why you're seeing the trucks on the side of the road. Because if we had them where they're normally staged at, the DOT guys, for example, come from Aiken. That's a 100-mile trip. We don't want to have to wait for them to make that trip. So we are primed and ready to go if the governor orders it. If we have to throw a reversal into place to move a lot of traffic in a hurry, we can. That's what planning and preparation is all about. But I would encourage you again, think about what we've seen over the last 3 years. The flooding in the central part in October of 15, Matthew in 16, Irma in 17, and what we're seeing right now is for Beaufort County is all three of those events rolling together into one. We've had our lessons. Now it may be time to face the exam.
Chairman of County Council, Mr. Somerville.
Good morning. Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, Colonel Baxley, and thanks so many people who have been actively involved in preparation for this storm for the last week or so, and will continue to be involved all the way through the recovery phase. I can assure you that there will be medical services provided. I've just been in communication with Beaufort Memorial Hospital, and they're open, of course. They're receiving patients from some of the areas that are under mandatory evacuation. The emergency room's open. TCL, I think, is going to be closed for the rest of the week. USCB is going to be closed for the rest of the week. But I want to say a word of caution to those of you who live anywhere where you're dependent on a causeway to get to your home. Even though we're not under mandatory evacuation, there are a lot of causeways in Beaufort County, and those of you who are here the last few years know what happens to those causeways when we get a lot of rain. It's going to be very difficult for emergency vehicles to get down a lot of those causeways. In some cases, it's going to be impossible. So even though we're not under a mandatory evacuation, I hope you will consider moving to an area where you can be accessed, as the sheriff suggested, Georgia and Florida. It's a good suggestion. But you have to use common sense. We're all going to use common sense. I also want to thank all of the leadership in the municipalities who've been working with us on a daily basis, the elected leadership and the staff leadership, to make sure that we're as prepared as we possibly can be. Thank you.
Mayor Bennett.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate what you do. Your safety is obviously of paramount importance to us. I am pleased at the level of preparation, planning, and execution that has gone forward at this point. We are prepared for whatever comes our way. As the Colonel indicated, the trajectory of the storm did take a southerly turn last night, and I would urge you that if that is of concern to you and you have the opportunity and the means, that you take this as a chance to evacuate and move yourself to a safer position. As the sheriff indicated, the states of Georgia and the states of Florida, the traffic flow to those areas is good at this point. And I guess my second urge to you would be to remain vigilant, to continue watching trusted sources of information, whether that be from the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, the town of Hilton Head Island website, signing up for their advisories, the same thing with the county's website, but continue to monitor those and listen to updates from the sheriff's office and respond to those accordingly. We will remain on watch, actively working on your behalf, and I have 100% confidence in the people that are working right now that they will execute perfectly on your behalf. So, God bless you all.
Mayor Salka.
Good morning, everybody. I'm not going to reiterate what everyone else said because I think we're all on the same page, but I do want to focus on a couple of things. I want to thank Sheriff Tanner and your team and Colonel Baxley for giving us up-to-date information. What this causes is for our municipalities to get out that information. So as soon as they know something, we know something, and we're going to get it out to you. You have Nixle. I would urge you to sign up for that. We have My Bluffton PD. Those are 2 apps you can sign up for, and you can go on any social media that's affiliated with any government and forget the rest, because the information going around social media that doesn't come from the Sheriff's Department, the county site, the town site, and the Bluffton PD site for Bluffton, that's the accurate info, and I think we all are given the same message. We have a lot of residents in Bluffton that have made reservations in Jacksonville, and below I would urge you to consider going that way, because if this changes and Georgia changes, you may not get to your reservation. So I'm not scaring you, but I do want you to take heed to the idea of going south or going southwest before this affects Georgia. What we know is a storm is twice the size of our state, and you can see that on any of the maps that you see on the internet. Twice the size of our state. That's not something we mess with, and Colonel Baxley had said prior, any tiny movement right now isn't a tiny effect on our state. It's hundreds of miles that it can affect. So just be smart, be aware, be present. We plan, we prepare. I would ask all the residents to do the same, and just be smart. So thank you again, Sheriff, and stay tuned.
Mayor Kaiserling.
Thank you. I want to, starting with the governor, to the sheriff, to Colonel Baxley, to the municipal managers and mayors, Paris Island, the hospitals. For those who don't know, decisions aren't being made arbitrarily. Bromwich says up. Decisions are not being made arbitrarily. People sit around a table and everybody talks to each other and try to give those who make decisions the best we can. My first suggestion to the city is that if you were uncomfortable, if you had damage during Irma or Matthew, you may want to consider leaving. You're not being asked to leave, but we would encourage you to do what you think is best. You know what it is. Secondly, our sandbag operation, I think we've given away probably in the neighborhood of 2,000 sandbags for those who live in the lower parts of the city. That will go back into operation again today. Thirdly, the city offices will remain closed through the week, but enough of you can find me or the city manager or through our switchboard. There'll always be someone you can talk to at the city, if not someone at the county. But I have to stress to those out there, there is uncertainty. I think that the movement now to officially not evacuate, but to encourage those who feel the discomfort, who feel the threat, who've experienced the threat, to go ahead and make that move. Otherwise, we're here, and you'll hear through the sheriff's leadership from us on as regular basis as possible. Thank you.
Tom, do you want to talk about county government offices being closed, or you just want me to say that they are closed until further notice?
That'll be sufficient.
Okay. I saved you a little trip up.
Thank you.
Highway Patrol, we got, Gil, we got anything that we need to address?
I think you covered it in your, we're ready. DOT, Transport Police, DNR, and SLAB are ready.
Okay, DOT, any concerns from DOT?
Yes, sir.
All right. Neil, can you give just an overlay of the historic issues we've had with the flooding that we talked about earlier, some of the pinpoint locations? I know that last in Irma, Mayor Salka and I talked about Brighton Beach and those areas. So if you could kind of cover some of the areas we talked about, just to remind people of those areas.
Yes, sir. I have the opportunity to give public talks all the time on preparation, and I always say that we're called the Low Country for a reason. And people look at me and, what are you talking about? Well, during Matthew, and we had forecast this for years, Highway 21 at Gardens Corner was inundated with seawater from Broad River for about 5 hours over 3 foot deep. You could not travel north-south on Highway 21 out of Beaufort up into Gardens Corner and to reach the interstate, because that was our only route and it was cut. The Highway 21 Sea Island Parkway at Lays Island Airport under both Matthew and Irma had about 3 feet of water on it. The Causeway to Warsaw Island went underwater. Causeway to Harbor Island, I don't believe topped, but it got really close. And of course we had the bridge wash out, not the bridge itself, but the causeway leading up to the bridge in both events. It was the east side of the bridge in Matthew and the west side of the bridge during Irma, the Harbor River Bridge. So there's a lot of low-lying areas where water will go that people do not ordinarily see water. And they all of a sudden they're surprised. We had people in Ladies Island after Irma. Well, you didn't tell us that we were going to flood. We did tell you. You live in a low-lying area. You face the water. If you have the spring tides and you see the water come a little bit further up into your yard or onto your property than you're used to, well, this is going to be magnified many times over from that. So there's a lot of places out there that will flood. If you have a nice marsh view vista somewhere, it's going to have water in it when this event's over, just like it did in Matthew, just like it did in Irma. So I would encourage you to think about that. Think about where you live, where your property's at, what vision you have normally, and then what happened during Matthew, what happened during Irma. If you saw water then, if it got up in your yards, if it got up to your house, then you're probably going to see it again. Then let's take and add in the rainwater. We have stormwater issues because, again, we're the low country. There has to be somewhere for the water to flow to drain off. So if we're at a high tide cycle and we get 3 inches of rain during that 6-hour period, there's nowhere for the water to go. It can get to the drains, and the drains are full because they drain out into the marshes. So if then water backs up into the streets or in front of your neighborhood or through your neighborhood, you're going to see that again. You've seen it before. It's going to be at least that bad, potentially worse than what we've seen in the past. So, you know, unless you moved here in the past week or 10 days and have no historical knowledge of this, your neighbors do. So that's what you want to look for, is where we had those flooding issues, those stormwater issues, those inundation issues before. It will happen again under this scenario. So that's our word of caution again. You know your historical situation in your neighborhood. You want to take that into account. If you're not comfortable with that, if your house is surrounded by 90-foot pines and you've lost 1 or 2 during Matthew, well, chances are you may lose 1 or 2 more. If you're not comfortable being there in that scenario, then we strongly encourage you to take off and go somewhere safe now while the opportunity is here and you can move safely about.
Was just reminded also that the county convenience centers are going to be closed too through till further notice, kind of like the county offices. Hospitals, last report, our hospitals in Beaufort County, to include Coastal Carolina and Jasper County, are open and are currently operational. Don't know what changes may come. We'll just have to play that by ear over the next few days, but they are currently open and they're accepting patients at all 3 facilities. Questions?
Sheriff, how long did it take? Do you have an idea of
how long it takes to evacuate the county?
We have some blueprints on that, but you have to factor in evacuation. For us, if there is a positive side to an evacuation right now, is we're not competing with Georgia and Florida. Georgia and Florida in this particular scenario are our allies and our friends, because they will be accepting a lot of folks that decide to leave Beaufort County, because we're not sending anyone northward or northwest. We're trying to do south and southwest. So I don't have an answer for you other than the evacuation. If in fact we had to do one tomorrow morning, our feeling is it would go fairly smoothly.
Do you have any sense, and maybe not, of how many people have already left, and will that make a possible evacuation tomorrow morning smoother?
Well, that's changed quite a bit in the past 24 hours. You know, of course, a lot of people got information early that there was going to be an evacuation call yesterday, which there was, and there was a change, of course, about 11:15 yesterday morning. So there were a lot of folks that left or had planned to leave and now have stayed, and they're considering what options they currently have. And of course, it's our position that we strongly recommend that you take those options and move if you can. Just like the mayor said, if you're uncomfortable with what you're seeing and you feel like that we will have to look at the evacuation plan again over the next 24 hours, then, as Neil always says, leave early. And in this particular case, you can leave early and you can't really go to the direction you want to. The direction you need to go is Georgia, Florida. So,
Sheriff, you may just comment for those that might be looking to leave, when they can expect tropical storm force winds to arrive.
The National Weather Service told us that the earliest reasonable time was going to be somewhere around midday tomorrow. The most probable time, today's Wednesday. Yeah. The most probable time, so we've been on 8 straight days now. The most probable time would be Thursday evening, late Thursday. So the situation will probably start deteriorating overnight tonight, more cloudy, maybe some spotty rain, and then tomorrow through the day get progressively worse.
Can you speak to the Jasper shelter, Colonel, and when and if it would open?
Yes, ma'am. Jasper is waiting for a decision from the governor's office about any changes in the mandatory evacuation. They are primed and ready to open if they have to. There are now 26 shelters open across the state. The only shelter open in our conglomerate right now is in Bamberg County, and it is open and preparing to receive 250 evacuees from Fayetteville, North Carolina. So that's some of the mutual aid we have in place to help out our neighbors. The shelters in Jasper for Beaufort County residents are hinged on that change in the status from the governor. If we request them open, if we see a situation, we can request them, and they will come open. But we're not there yet. And I know you've had your hand up 3 or 4 times. Mostly. Oh, I'll get out. Wait a minute, Sheriff. She wants you.
Don't go too far. Stassi?
Do you have the power over Governor Henry McMaster to call an evacuation, and if so, when is the latest time you would do that?
Well, I do not have the power to call for anything over to the governor of South Carolina. At this particular stage, I work directly for the governor. So we have been in communication with each other. I can promise you that he is very, very concerned about what we're doing here in Beaufort County. He's watching this telecast as we talk. And, you know, our position is, and the decision we made after our 9 o'clock briefing, is to urge every citizen in Beaufort County, and as Mayor Keisling said, if you're uncomfortable with what you're seeing and the information that you're getting about staying in Beaufort County, then it's time to relocate. And if we need to re-examine the evacuation that will be something that we will be looking at between now and tomorrow morning. So that, I mean, it could happen, and the governor is going to direct us to do whatever he feels is in the interest of the citizens of South Carolina. And you know, he's worked very, very well with us over the past few days, but he's eager to know what we're doing in Beaufort County and the decisions that we're making. He's comfortable with the conversation we're currently are having, but again, the storm will dictate what we do next. It's unpredictable. We've seen some changes in it that we don't like, that are different than yesterday. And we're very, very, very guarded at this point as to what the storm will represent for Beaufort County. And I think, as I said earlier, every citizen should take the same position. You know, you need to make sure that you're following any and all information that we're sending out and making a decision that's good for you and your family. And we're going to collectively make the appropriate decision for the county. Questions?
The citizens who may want to leave but have employers who are saying still come to work, and because there's not a mandatory evacuation, they can't leave?
That's difficult for us to address. I mean, those are decisions that are going to have to be made independently because we're not under an official declaration or evacuation order, and that does change things. But right now we're just asking for voluntary compliance and everything we're trying to accomplish. Questions?
I guess at this point, if there isn't an evacuation and so people decide to stay, even if you're encouraging them, are they going to have, you know, emergency services and things available to them if they do stay?
Throw that pods too, probably a little bit.
Right. Again, we look at history. We will remain available to respond to calls for service up until such time as the weather dictates we come off. Since Matthew, we have, through the 1033 program, obtained a number of high water vehicles, military surplus type stuff, Humvees, LMTVs, which allowed us in Irma to continue to patrol. Now, we still have to pull patrol cars off the road. We still have to pull ambulances off the road. But what we did during Irma is, in several very specific scenarios, we put paramedics in those high water vehicles and responded to calls. So we'll continue to respond to the absolute best of our ability. If the situation deteriorates to a point where it's unsafe for anything, then we will pull off and we'll continue to take the 911 calls and prioritize them. And as soon as the weather allows us to get back out on the road, we'll begin re-responding to those calls.
At what point are you pulled off the road?
For the average patrol cars, for the Dodge Chargers and the Ford Explorers, it is 39-mile-per-hour sustained winds, which is tropical storm force winds. We have to because they're just not strong enough to withstand a crosswind on a causeway or something like that. The heavier vehicles, we stayed out throughout all of Irma, and that will be just, we really don't know what the limitations on those vehicles are as far as wind because they weigh literally tons, and so we can continue moving around for a while. And we'll do it for as absolutely long as we can. Now, that reduces the number of vehicles we have responding, but we do have them strategically placed throughout the county so we can maintain a presence. And the municipal police departments have also done the same thing. This 1033 program has been a tremendous boon to us in acquiring vehicles like that ordinarily we would never be able to get. So now Beaufort has them, Bluffton has them, and Van, does Port Royal have any? Yes, we do. Port Royal has them also, so we can maintain a presence for a lot longer now than we did in the past.
Town of Port Royal, Van, is there anything you want to address? And I apologize for. Okay, you good? Yes. Okay. Any other questions?
I guess water and beach. You know, you guys have a lot of coastline. There sounds like there's going to be some concern with waves and things like that in addition to wind. Any word to beachgoers or surfers or anybody who might be interested in bigger waves?
Well, of course, the undercurrent and the surge and all the other stuff that we look at is in play currently and will be definitely for the next several days, probably into the middle of next week. So, I mean, it's something we're going to have to continuously look at. And, and people just need to be cautious. personally cautious to those things, even though I know we'll have a few that are daring, but the less daring the better, and we'll just have to keep a look on it, keep an eye on it. Come on.
The sheriff just mentioned, it prompted me to remind you something. The winds will probably stop blowing in tropical storm force type scenario under this probably Sunday. But if we get the 30 inches of rain across the state that they're talking about, this event will go on well through next week, probably into the following weekend. Widespread power outages. Again, through the inland part, we might not have the bridge washout problems in Beaufort County, but our neighbors in Jasper and Hampton and Colleton will, because they suffered it in 2015. So we need to keep that in mind. That will affect everything. If Interstate 95 were to get interrupted in Clarendon County like it did in 2015, that affects grocery delivery in Beaufort County. If I-26 were to get interrupted, same thing. Commodities move every day by trucks, and if the trucks cannot roll, we're going to experience issues that we need to be prepared for now. I'm encouraging everybody, just think about this. Be prepared not only for the storm Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but what may happen into next week. Be prepared for extended power outages. Be prepared for some difficulty obtaining goods that you're used to just getting out and running to the store and getting. You probably don't pay a lot of attention to trucks, but they literally roll into the stores every day, sometimes twice a day, to the grocery stores, to Walmart and all this. That service might get interrupted because of the after effects of the storm. So we need to be prepared for that now.
Are there any locations that people can get sandbags that you know of?
The county is not doing a sandbag operation. City of Beaufort was. City of Beaufort, can you speak to that? Are you still providing sandbags? Where would they be at, sir?
Outside Park. We will be prepping the sandbags. They will not be available today. They probably will not be available tomorrow. It will be posted at time.
Okay. The City of Beaufort will be providing sandbags. They're prepping them, but they're not available today or tomorrow. They will announce that, and it would be at Southside Park when that becomes available.
You talked about trucks and food delivery. What about power crews? You know, obviously the focus has been a little north of you guys. Are you going to have those people here should you experience it?
Already been in contact with SC&G this morning. They coordinate that effort, and Palmetto Electric. Crews are already coming in. They have reserved hotel rooms, and they will be pre-staging in county depending on the weather scenario. If it deteriorates to the point where they need to stage out of county for safety, because if the trucks get damaged, they become part of the problem and not part of the solution. So that already, we all know the power company probably has the absolute best response program nationwide of any one entity, and those trucks are already rolling towards South Carolina to be prepared to respond to this. So yes, that's all. But when you lose, when you lose one pole, it's easy to go reset it. When you lose 100, it takes a while.
Where can people report price gouging if they see it?
The attorney, they can report it to us directly, to the sheriff's office, or to the local law enforcement authorities, and we'll start the inquiry into it. They can report it to the Attorney General's office through their website, and they can report it to the Secretary of State's office. One other thing we need to remember, power outages affect sewer lift stations. Lose power, you lose sewer lift stations, you got a problem in your house. And it's as nice as I can put it. So keep that in mind.
Just to be clear, is tomorrow morning kind of a deadline, do you feel like, for an evacuation order to be able to get people out in time ahead of this?
I don't think we're going to set a deadline. We're going to react as circumstances dictate.
We have been keeping a very, very close eye on Jim Cantori. He's still in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, and as long as he stays there, we feel a whole lot better for us, but we feel, of course, sorry for North Carolina and Horry County. So we will probably do another press conference if we think we need to. Could be later today, probably tomorrow morning if we see the need for it, and we'll make sure and let you know. We'll give you some timely advance notice. So thank you for coming, and let's just keep reminding people how serious this storm is, and that everyone needs to take the same approach. So thank you.
Bye.